Crash issue 15 was the April 1985 issue. Unlike previous months, the cover image doesn't appear to be making reference to any specific game. Somewhat reminiscent of issue 1's cover, this is again an Alien, but this time with ZX Spectrum keyboards for eyes. There are a variety of different types of games reviewed this month, so let's take a look at the top 10. In 10th place this month we have Pudput from Ocean, written by Joffa Smith and Christine Smith. In this game you play a character called Pudput, who is trapped in a weird world and must escape by finding and eating 10 puddings. Crash described it as one of the weirdest games that they'd played for a long time, with the inlay not being much help in giving hints or tips. They found the graphics excellent and liked the tune at the start of the game. They found the game playable but lacked in lasting appeal. They gave this game a score of 75%. It's not really a traditional platform game, as your ability to fly rather than jump means that the platforms are primarily there as an obstruction and to give the screen interest. I enjoyed this one back in the day. It's a game that has a charming feel to it graphically, although like many of the multi-room exploration games of the time, it doesn't feel quite substantial enough to be an essential play. In 9th place we have Funhouse, released by Pacific. This is a text adventure set in an abandoned carnival which has been taken over by an alien. Your task is to search for and destroy the alien's brain. Crash felt that this was an original work and a consistently well-executed concept. They found the overall layout to be well thought through and objects to be found in intelligent and logical places. They liked the interesting storyline and found that the threads come together in a coherent plot. They liked the way in which most locations were available for exploration from the start. They gave the game 7 out of 10, although taking the scores as a percentage gives this 76%. It is a game that's graphically quite primitive, using user-defined graphics rather than drawing pictures. The font's effective, and being a quill-based game, the parser is responsive, although limited to verb-noun interactions. There are the typical challenges of these era of games of guessing the verb. The game does a good job of evoking the feel of an abandoned carnival and may be fun for adventure fans. In 8th place we have Nicotine Nightmare, released by Atlantis Software. This is the Atlantis contribution to the anti-smoking campaign, popular in the 1980s. The game has 2 levels, the first in which you attempt to put out cigarettes with a watering can, the second being a platform game in which you have to shut down the cigarette factory. Although targeted as an anti-smoking game, Crash found it so frustrating that they joked it would actually make you start smoking. They described the graphics as basic, but found nothing stunning about the game. An original idea they felt it may be worth considering is that it's fairly cheap, at £2.99. They gave this a score of 78%. For starters, the game is not at all subtle about conveying its message of cigarettes are evil, giving the impression of being an anti-cigarette advertisement dressed up as a game. Unfortunately, the game isn't a very good one. It would perhaps been fine had it been released in 1983, but by 1985 the standard of graphics and gameplay had got considerably better, making this decidedly unimpressive. In 7th place is The Thinker, again released by Atlantis Software and written by Ian Hook. This is a sliding block puzzle game in which you have to release a numbered block by moving other blocks around the grid and out of the way. Crash described this as a puzzle game well suited to playing on a computer, although they were unexcited by the graphics and found the sound irritating. The biggest advantage they saw of this game was the price. At £1.99 they found it affordable, even if you were not sure that you would like it. They gave an overall score of 79%. Some games are timeless, and this is an example. This type of sliding block puzzle is still a popular type of mobile phone app today. The graphics may be primitive, and the game feels slow to respond, but the nature of the puzzle is just as much fun as the graphically superior variants. It may not be worthwhile playing this version over the more modern variants, but a fun game nevertheless. In 6th place is another text adventure, again written with the quill. This is Underworld the Village, written by Keith Parrock and released by Orpheus. In this game you're reading the newspaper when your eye is struck by reports of treasures in a nearby village, then you go to investigate. Crash described the most endearing features of the game as being the interesting location descriptions set within a fascinating plot laid out upon a credible map. They found the surroundings believable and the vocabulary understood by the game to be friendly. Although finding the presentation poor, they felt the game was worth exploring, especially for the novice adventurer. They gave this 7 out of 10 with an overall percentage score of 80%. I'm not impressed by this game at all. By this stage in 1985 I would have expected better. There are no graphics, no effort has been made with the presentation of the game, and it's not like it makes up for that in the detail of the text. This is not a game I'd even recommend for adventure fans. In 5th place we have The Hollow, released by Gilsoft and written by Tom Davis. This is another text adventure written with the quill. In this game you are transported back to the time of wizards and have to find 2 parts of a stone and 7 parts of a medallion in order to return to your own time. Crash found The Hollow to be a fast-paced text adventure with a powerful examine command that leads deeper into the plot. They liked the instructions and storyline, finding them full, coherent and imaginative. They described this as one of the better quilled games and gave it a score of 8 out of 10. with an overall percentage score of 86%. Although Crash described this game as having no graphics, the version I played did. These used the companion product to the Quill, the Illustrator, also released by Gillsoft, to give the game full-screen pictures. However, these are slow to draw and not the greatest art in the world. The game appears to start well in setting an atmosphere, however things start to get a lot terser when you get going in the game. Not an all-time classic, but maybe worth a look. In fourth place we have Wriggler, released by Romantic Robot and written by Devonshire House. In this game you play a maggot who has to find their way through a maze set over 256 screens, split into 4 areas. Crash described this as a totally original game that is fun to play, and offers hours of enjoyment to all. They drew comparisons with Antics, reviewed in issue 6, and found that the different elements of maze, arcade and adventure combine to make this an absorbing game, although one that doesn't necessarily make a good first impression. They gave this 90% and a Crash smash. It's certainly a colourful and smoothly animated game, although I just find it to be yet another maze exploration type game that tends to lack in overall excitement. Not a bad little game, but not one I expect to be coming back to frequently. There are 2 games in joint second place. The first is Raid Over Moscow, published by US Gold, written by David Anderson, Ian Morrison and David Thorpe. This is a multi-stage game. In the first you have to fly each of your aircraft out of their hangar. The second is a horizontally scrolling shooter in which you have to avoid obstacles and missiles on the way to your target. The third is a target shooting game where you fire at 5 silos. The fourth is another target shooting game, but this time against soldiers and tanks whilst trying to destroy the door of the defence centre. The final stage requires you to bounce grenades in order to destroy a robot. Crash reviewers had mixed feelings about this game. One had high expectations and was a little disappointed. Another found the game immensely enjoyable, although finding the first few sequences got irritating after a while. The third found this an accomplished game that was absorbing, addictive and fun to play. Despite the mixed feelings of the reviewers, the game ended up with an overall score of 92% and a Crash smash. This game isn't quite as good as I remember it. Although the different stages provide variety, none of them are incredibly compelling in terms of gameplay. It's smooth enough and the graphics are reasonable, but I much preferred Beachhead over this. Also in joint second place is Death Star Interceptor, published by System 3 Software and written by David Aubrey-Jones and Mark Kell. This is a Star Wars themed space shooter based over 3 screens. On the first you launch your ship into hyperspace. The second is a space shoot 'em up as you fly towards the Death Star. Finally there's a trench run as you attempt to destroy the Death Star. Crash found this game to be superior to the Commodore 64 version, starting with an excellent version of the Star Wars tune and a reasonable speech. They believe that this game, along with Incentive's Mooncrester from last month, marks a new era of sophisticated shoot-'em-ups. Of the 3 screens, they found the second had been the most playable and enjoyable. Even at £7.95 they described it as value for money and gave it an overall rating of 92% and a Crash smash. Once you get past the launch screen it becomes a reasonably fast-paced and smooth space shooter. It's somewhere between Mooncrester and Ad Astra in the style of play, although I still think Mooncrester has the edge in terms of space shooters. But a reasonably fun game nonetheless, especially if you like this type. In first place we have Alien 8, another Ultimate Play the Game release from Tim and Chris Stamper. This is a follow-up to Nightlore from issue 12, although this time set on a starship. You play a robot whose task is to unfreeze your cryogenically frozen crew before the time runs out. Crash called out the similarities to Nightlore, but found it a bit of an advancement over the previous game and a bit more playable, with more structure to the game. They found it challenging, requiring lateral thinking as well as arcade reflexes. Like Nightlore, this game has a single colour per room, but Crash described the graphics as excellent, varied, characterful and very smooth. They gave this a score of 95% and a Crash smash. Although very similar to Nightlore, it's a reasonable isometric 3D game for the time. It's just a shame that the whole game slows down considerably as soon as there's any other characters or animation on the screen. It's infuriatingly difficult in parts, but worth playing if you enjoyed Nightlore. If you have enjoyed this, please like and subscribe to see more videos about retro games from Norlogic Retro.